The construction site on Kepler 442b fell silent as the massive shadow emerged from the crimson forest. Foreman Jace Rylan looked up from his datapad, his weathered hands freezing mid-swipe. Every worker on the site stopped, their tools humming down to silence as they watched the creature approach. Varrock, the alien wolf, stood nearly 3 meters at the shoulder, his obsidian fur rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. His 6 legs moved with predatory grace, each paw the size of a human torso. 3 rows of crystalline teeth caught the light of Kepler's twin suns, and his 4 amber eyes fixed directly on Jace. Behind him, moving more slowly, came another wolf. She was slightly smaller but visibly pregnant, her swollen belly swaying as she limped forward. Her fur was a deep midnight blue, and her eyes held a desperate hunger that made Jace's chest tighten. "Nobody move," Jace said quietly, his voice carrying across the frozen construction site. Nobody even breathe wrong. Varrock had been watching them for 3 months now. Every human on this planet knew the stories these apex predators had claimed 73 colonists in the first year of settlement. They could crush a prefab shelter with 1 bite, run faster than any human vehicle could manage through the dense forest, and their pack tactics had military strategists back on Earth taking notes. But then, something had changed. 6 weeks ago, Jace had been working late, reinforcing the western perimeter alone. A cave-in had trapped him, his leg pinned under 2 tons of rubble. He'd accepted his death knight was falling, and the wolves hunted at night. He'd heard Varrock's distinctive howl echoing through the canyon, that 7-toned call that made human blood run cold. Varrock had found him. The massive predator had circled Jace 3 times, those amber eyes studying him with an intelligence that went beyond animal cunning. Then, impossibly, Varrock had begun digging. Those enormous paws, designed for tearing prey apart, had carefully excavated the rubble. When Jace's leg was free, Varrock had stood guard until dawn, when the rescue team arrived. Jace had left water and his emergency rations as thanks. The next night, the food was gone. It had become a ritual. Jace would leave food. Varrock would take it. Sometimes the wolf would sit at the edge of the worksite, just watching. The other wolves never came close, but Varrock seemed fascinated by the humans and their strange activities. Now, Varrock approached to within 10 meters of Jace and stopped. The pregnant female beside him whined, a sound that seemed impossibly plaintive from such a deadly creature. Her flanks were hollow, her movements weak. "She's starving," whispered Chen, the site medic, who stood frozen behind Jace. Jace met Varrock's 4-eyed gaze. In those alien eyes, he saw something that transcended species desperation, trust, and a plea that needed no translation. Varrock had brought his mate to the one human he'd learned wouldn't harm them, the one who had shown kindness. "I need everyone to slowly back away to the main shelter," Jace said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Chen, before you go, tell me, can they eat our protein rations? They're obligate carnivores, but our synthetic meat should work," Chen replied. "Their biology isn't that different from Earth predators." "Good. Someone bring me every protein ration we have. All of it." "Foreman, that's 3 months of emergency supplies," someone protested. "Did I stutter?" Jace snapped. "Move." As his crew slowly retreated, Jace remained perfectly still. Varrock watched the humans leave, then took a careful step forward. The pregnant female followed, her exhaustion evident in every movement. 20 minutes later, Jace sat cross-legged on the ground, surrounded by crates of protein rations. He'd opened several, the smell of synthetic meat filling the air. Varrock had moved closer, now only 5 meters away. His mate pressed against his side. "I'm going to stand up slowly," Jace said, speaking as much to calm himself as to communicate with the wolves. "I'm going to back away. The food is yours." He rose with deliberate slowness, then walked backward 20 paces. Varrock watched him for a long moment, those amber eyes unblinking. Then the massive predator dipped his head, a gesture that looked bizarrely like a nod, and guided his mate forward. She fell on the food with desperate hunger, tearing through the rations with savage efficiency. Varrock ate too, but slowly, his eyes never leaving Jace. It was the behavior of a protector, Jace realized. A father preparing for his young, willing to humble himself before a species his kind usually hunted because his mate needed help. The female ate for nearly an hour. When she finally stopped, her belly was distended, and some of the desperation had left her eyes. She looked at Jace, and then did something that made his breath catch. She lowered her massive head to the ground in what could only be a bow. Varrock approached Jace then, close enough that the human could feel the heat radiating from the alien wolf's body, could smell the strange musk of his fur. One enormous paw reached out, and Jace forced himself not to flinch. The crystalline claws, each one capable of gutting him with a casual swipe, gently touched his shoulder. The gesture lasted only a moment. Then Varrock turned and led his mate back toward the forest. At the tree line, Varrock stopped and looked back. He raised his head and released that seven-toned howl into the darkening sky. But this time, it didn't sound like a threat or a hunting call. It sounded like something else entirely. It sounded like gratitude. Chen emerged from the shelter, medical scanner in hand. "Sir, I was monitoring their biology. She's going to give birth within the week. She wouldn't have survived without that food, neither would the pups." Jace watched the two wolves disappear into the crimson forest. "Make a note in the log," he said quietly. "Requisition more protein rations. Triple the usual amount. And Chen? I want regular drops at the forest edge from now on." "Sir?" Jace smiled, a strange warmth spreading through his chest. "We're not alone on this planet. It's time we learned to be neighbors instead of enemies." Today, a father asked for help. What kind of humans would we be if we refused? 3 weeks later, Varrock returned. This time, he wasn't alone. His mate was with him, and 5 pups tumbled around her feet, their bioluminescent patterns flickering like stars. They stayed at the forest edge, but Varrock approached Jace directly, touched his shoulder with that same gentle gesture. And then something remarkable happened. The predator who had killed dozens of humans sat down beside the human foreman, looked out over the construction site, and waited. Just watched. A guardian standing watch over the strange, soft creatures who had saved his family. And Jace Rylan, foreman of a human colony on an alien world, sat beside the deadliest predator on the planet, and felt safer than he ever had before. Sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology. Sometimes, it was simply the capacity for compassion, even for those with teeth and claws.